Listen as your day unfolds, challenge what the future holds. Try and keep your head up to the sky. Lovers, they may cause you tears. Go ahead, release your fears. Stand up and be counted, don't be ashamed to cry. You gotta be bad, you gotta be bold, you gotta be wiser. You gotta be hard, you gotta be tough, you gotta be stronger. You gotta be cool, you gotta be calm, you gotta stay together. All I know, love will save the day. What your mother said, read the books your father read, trying to solve the puzzles in your own sweet time. Some may have more cash than you, others take a different view. My, oh my, yeah, yeah. You gotta be bad, you gotta be bold, you gotta be wiser. You gotta be hard, you gotta be tough, you gotta be stronger. You gotta be cool, you gotta be calm, you gotta stay together. All I know, love will save the day. Time asks no questions, it goes on without you, leaving you behind if you can stand the pace. The world keeps on spinning, can't stop it if you try to. The best part is danger staring you in the face. Whoa. Remember, listen as your day unfolds, challenge what the future holds. Try to keep your head up to the sky. Lovers, they may cause you tears. Go ahead, release your fears. My, oh my, eh, eh, eh. You gotta be bad, you gotta be bold, you gotta be wiser. You gotta be hard, you gotta be tough, you gotta be stronger. You gotta be cool, you gotta be calm, you gotta stay together. All I know, love will save the day. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You gotta be bad, you gotta be bold, you gotta be wiser. You gotta be hard, you gotta be tough, you gotta be stronger. You gotta be cool, you gotta be calm, you gotta stay together. All I know, love will save the day. Got to be bold, got to be bad, got to be wise, don't ever sad. Got to be hard, not too hard. All I know is love will save the day. You gotta be bad, you gotta be bold, you gotta be wiser. You gotta be hard, you gotta be tough, you gotta be stronger. You gotta be cool, you gotta be calm, you gotta stay together. You gotta be bad, you gotta be bold, you gotta be wiser. You gotta be hard, you gotta be tough, you gotta be stronger.
Hi, and welcome. I'm Gretchen Mowney, they, she, and I'm the UUA's Accessibility Resources Coordinator, zooming in today from Columbia, Missouri. I'm a disabled, white, elder millennial with short blue hair, and today I am wearing a sleeveless, really dark blue collar neck top. I've got my multiple pairs of headphones going and some rainbow chalice earrings. And I'm so glad to be here with you today. In order to increase accessibility, we've employed CART, a human captioner, and you can access these captions through the menu in your Zoom settings. We will also be describing visual elements throughout the program. If you have any access needs that aren't being met, we want to know. Please direct them to our tech manager, Wendy Werrick, in the chat, or if the chat doesn't work for you, like me, you can always raise your hand using Option Y or Alt Y, or clicking on the raise hand button. and we will find out how we can help you. Please be aware that the meeting is being recorded for use as an accessibility resource that will live on the UUA's website. And the recording and transcript will be made available in the coming weeks. For this program, we have a content warning for anaphylaxis and death. There will be brief talk of both. A final note, please know that it is always okay to turn off your camera and or leave the meeting space at any time. It's also okay to show up however you are able. This includes lying down, moving around, fidgeting, and more. However you show up and whoever you are beloved and welcome here. Our chalice lighting today is What We Do Matters by Laura Horton Ludwig. Spirit of life and love, we are here because we believe what we do matters. We are here because we believe how we live our life matters. That with every act of kindness or meanness, courage or fear, love or hate, we are weaving the fabric of the universe that holds us all. We are here because we need encouragement, because we need strength, because so often we get distracted. We get in a rush. We don't think. We choose the easy way. When the harder path is what our spirits truly long for. We are here because none of us is perfect, but together we inspire one another to try again, to take another step. We are here because we have felt the stirrings of love and grace in our hearts and hands, and we crave more of that for ourselves, and not only for ourselves, for everyone. We are here because how we live matters. Blessed be. Our chalice is now lit. Our opening song is We Shall Be Known by Anna Meyer. The video will show two femme presenting singers sitting cross-legged on the grass facing each other. We see a river between them, banked with a hill of scrub and rocks.
We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love.
This is Gretchen again, and I am so happy to welcome you to our April Uplift Access Resource Webinar. These monthly lunchtime learning sessions provide lay leaders and religious professionals an opportunity to learn about an array of topics regarding accessibility, inclusion, and disability justice, and how to apply that information to their work within Unitarian Universalism. As Unitarian Universalists, we affirm the inherent worth and dignity of all people, but we don't always know what that looks like in action. We are called to dismantle forms of oppression in ourselves and our institutions, but we don't always know how. Through presentations on accessible practices, by dismantling systemic ableism, and by highlighting the disabled UU experience, we aspire to equip you with the knowledge and tools to live these values out loud when it comes to our disabled siblings. This month, we're talking about accessible food and how we can be more inclusive of beloveds whose disabilities include food allergies and sensitivities. Whether we are putting together a monthly potluck, plating cookies for coffee hour after service, or joining friends for the new and exciting dinner church many of our congregations are doing, UUs love to share meals. And as a UU who loves to eat, I'm really grateful for that. These gatherings bring us closer together, helping to create friendships, welcome newcomers, and build our communities. But what happens when folks show up and discover there's no food they can eat? As a faith that strives to put love at the center of everything we do, we never want to exclude anyone from our meals. Special guest Anna Meyer is with us today to share her expertise on food allergies so we can have more accessible meals inclusive of all beloveds. Anna Meyer, who uses she, her pronouns, moved to Columbia in 2006 to attend the University of Missouri and completed her master's in art history in 2008, when strange new health problems appeared. In 2009, after 2 years, 7 doctors, and 1 vengeful chili cheese dog, she was diagnosed with extensive food and environmental allergies, allergic to 7 of top 9, plus all grains, yeast, many fruits, vegetables, garlic, chocolate, spices. Both cooking and dining out were a challenge. Over the next 6 years, Anna baked and decorated cakes professionally at local stores, which became increasingly detrimental to her health. In 2012, Anna began catering to the needs of allergen-free and specialty diets throughout Columbia from her home. Then she opened Range Free in 2015 and built a dedicated free-from kitchen, understanding the needs of a restricted diet as few eateries in Columbia can. Over the past 10 years, she has amassed baking and decorating awards, including Feast 50 in 2018, and recently the Business Champion Award for Boone County Family Resources, which serves disabled people. Thank you so much for being with us today, Anna. I'm so excited to hear what you have to say. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Gretchen. Thank you for inviting me to be here. Can everybody hear me all right? All righty. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. Hopefully, there we go. Does that look like a PowerPoint to everyone? All right, so I am Anna Meyer, and I'm here to talk about food for thought, adding allergies to this discussion of making our shared meals accessible. I'm learning as I'm going along with describing slides and myself, so bear with me. I'll do my best. I am also an elder white millennial. I have shoulder length brown hair, and I am wearing a teal t-shirt that says the future is inclusive. And teal is the color for food allergy awareness. And May is Food Allergy and Asthma Awareness Month. So this is a really timely little meet and greet here so that we can learn how to make our shared meals accessible. My first slide here is A Still Life with Shellfish by Clara Peters from the 1600s. I like to include this as an opening image because it does give about half of our top 9 allergens. There's an array on a tablecloth table with shrimp in the middle, a bowl of lobster, a bowl of crab, some eggs, various breads, and half of a wheel of cheese. As Gretchen introduced me, I am the owner of Range Free Bakery, also here in Columbia, Missouri, where I am zooming in from. Is this stuff on the top of your screen as well? No? Okay. Thank you, Wendy. We opened in 2015, so we are just over 10 years old. I am food allergic, as she said. My pronouns are she, her. And in my recent years, I've really been promoting food disability advocacy work well beyond just making food that is accessible for folks. I am a former college instructor of art history, and art appreciation. And as Gretchen said, I used to decorate and bake in corporate bakeries. I have a little sad face after that on my slide because I am a small business owner, so I am I'm a little anti-corporate. I have an MA in art history from the University of Missouri and a BFA in sculpture and art history from the Kansas City Art Institute. And I just wanted to reiterate my content warning that I do touch on anaphylaxis and death in my presentation. So I've given you a little condensed list of my food allergies because this is really what propulsed me into a food-friendly bakery. I lived until my late 20s not knowing of this, although they were probably present for a lot of my lifetime. I just didn't know. And so having known how to bake with all of the standard foods, having been doing that for most of my life, it was a drastic life change to get all of these diagnoses with food allergies, especially when it's 7 of the top 9 allergens. And we're going to talk first about what food allergy even means, what it is, and go into a little bit of some legal documents about the ADA and how that pertains to food allergies. And then we'll talk about some ways to make your food shared more accessible. And I do this because in my past almost 20 years, whenever I talk to folks about food allergies, it turns into a lot of education from the beginning, even amongst folks who are food allergic. And it's always been very surprising to me that we need so much education on what even is a food allergy, because this slide here, which I have not quite learned best practices yet for a JPEG and a slide that is just filled with words. So I'm going to read a little bit about the food allergy epidemic to you. This is taken from the Food Allergy Resource and Education Network, one of the largest advocacy groups for food allergies. This is actually a pretty old image, and I don't know if they are working on updated content because this is from like the mid 2015, 2016 time, at which the number then was 32 million just Americans have food allergies. So now we're really approaching about 33 million since this is outdated, but we don't have current research numbers on this. And that turns into about 1 in 10 adults or 1 in 13 children. And more than half of the adults with food allergies have experienced a severe reaction, meaning something like anaphylaxis. And more than 40% of children with food allergies have experienced a severe reaction. These severe reactions have increased claim lines with the diagnoses of anaphylactic food reactions 377% between 2007 and 2016. So it is definitely an epidemic. It is huge proportions, and as I'm going to go over shortly, it affects a lot of our population. So you can think about this in terms of your congregation, of how many people that means have a food allergy within your congregation. A lot of the times when we're talking about food allergens, we're talking about the top 9, and those are classified by the FDA in the United States of America. In other countries, that list is usually a longer list. In places like Europe, other countries in the UK, it can be up to 21 food allergens that they mandate labeling for on food packaging. But here we just got our 9th added in 2021, and that is sesame. So this slide just goes over some of the various ways that these top 9 food allergens can sneak into our regular foods. So those are sesame, eggs, fish, and shellfish. Those are 2 separate categories. Peanuts and tree nuts, also 2 separate categories. Soy, dairy, and wheat. I'm going to put a little disclaimer in this part. Wheat is the top 9 allergen. Gluten is not required to be labeled by the FDA. We could go into a whole conversation just on that. But for the brevity of this, we're going to talk about the top 9. However, over 170 foods have caused allergic reactions and sent folks to the emergency room, which happens about every 3 minutes in the United States. On this slide, I have the poster image for Crip Camp, the wonderful movie that came out years ago that I was lucky to see here in town at our local film festival, True False. And that really kind of propulsed me into the food disability advocacy world. We are surrounded by food. It's pervasive. Everyone has to eat. So I realized that we don't talk about food allergies as a disability. And it wasn't until I viewed myself as a person with a disability that I could start advocating truly for myself and safe food to eat and advocating for others. So here's a quote from indivisibledisabilityproject.org. The fact is, 93 to 95% of people with disabilities are not wheelchair users. So the vast majority of those contending with less visible impairments also have to deal with a lack of understanding. And this is really what I have experienced in the past nearly 2 decades, is that there's a lack of understanding with what a food allergy is and how that affects us as humans. So I'm going to go over a little bit of the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990 and how that relates to food disability. According to disability law, it prohibits discrimination and ensures equal opportunity for persons with disabilities in employment, state and local government services, public accommodations, retail stores, museums, libraries, commercial facilities like privately owned buildings, and transportation, with the exception of commercial airlines, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later. So under the ADA, a disability is defined as a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activities as an individual. Those include, but are not limited to, eating and breathing, and affect your heart and circulatory system, eating and your digestive system, breathing and your respiratory system, and more. All of these life activities are at risk for a person with a life-threatening food allergy. And it might seem on the surface that this is kind of a no-brainer. Of course, food allergies are a disability because they can become life-threatening and everyone needs to eat. So we're going to talk a moment about food allergies versus intolerances. There is a difference, but inclusivity brings in everyone. So a food allergy is an IgE blood response to a protein in a food. When you have an allergic reaction, it is that IgE blood response where white blood cells attack your system. It can be fatal in anaphylaxis, anaphylactic shock. Those are in fact two different things that took me many years to figure out, despite being in anaphylactic shock a couple times. Anaphylactic shock is when you start having food allergic reactions that are 3 or more of your systems, like your breathing, like your circulatory system, like your skin. There are no cures for food allergies, and the safest way to avoid allergens and to be safe is to completely avoid them, including cross contact. Versus intolerances, which are not a blood response, but usually a digestive tract reaction. So think about a lactose intolerance. They are not fatal. There's also no cure, but they are usually treatable with over-the-counter drugs, but they're still super not fun and should be included when we're thinking about accessible meals, because no one wants to leave an event because they're having a reaction to the food present. Eating is a basic life function that we require to live. All people need to be able to eat safely, but it's usually an overlooked portion of being inclusive. Now, while I'm talking specifically about food allergies, because that is my professional expertise, there are many other types of medically restricted diets, and that includes about 17% of the US. Food disabilities span all types of foods. IgE responses are not the only system dysfunction to consider with inclusivity. Things like diabetes, Crohn's, colitis, Hashimoto, lupus, other autoimmune disorders, alpha-gal and tick-borne diseases, which are exploding here in Missouri right now, kidney disease, high cholesterol, neurodivergent spectrums, and many, many, many more types of medically challenging disabilities and disorders are managed through food. And I do have a little, one of my favorite artists is included here in this slide, David Hockney, always with desserts and beautiful light. So how does the ADA affect us? When we're talking about food disability and the government, it can be multifaceted in its effects. The ADA prevents discrimination from federal, state, and local government services and employment. It requires organizations that receive federal and state funding from discriminating, and creates legislation for food disability law, largely through the Food and Drug Administration. But there's a lot to be desired in all of these categories. And I like to just throw in some questions in my slides for you to think about and take with you beyond here. Can you find some examples of government disregard for the ADA food allergy compliance? Within employment, the ADA states, we shall not discriminate against a qualified individual with a disability. This applies to job application procedures, hiring, advancement and discharge of employees, job training, and other terms, conditions, and privileges of employment. Within employment, there are many food-based activities, and you can think of these as the inverse of ways to include folks within these food-based activities. A lot of employment places will include team building, employee perks of like gift cards to food places. Mandatory meetings often have food at them. Holiday and celebration parties, I'd like to see any food party or celebration that didn't have food involved with it. Food can be involved in training and breaks. And then what about office and shared space protocols if you're sharing an office with a food allergic person? And there are many other ways that this inverse from being a place where food is present within employment, how can we make those settings more inclusive with that food? My slide here is very appropriate for what we're talking about. I have The Last Supper by Leonardo da Vinci, and this is in Milan in a rectory that is actually part of their dining program. So as the religious clergy come into their dining room, their dining hall, this is what they're met with. And all of these things that we're talking about with the ADA, well, they don't apply to churches, right? Because you guys don't get federal funding from the government. So that means everyone's exempt, right? But you guys are coming from this place of love and inclusivity, and I think this is really great, and one reason why I was so excited to be invited to share today in seeing folks who aren't, required to invite and include food allergic folks, but you're doing the work anyways, and that really warms my heart. So I'm going to give a brief aside on food disability and transportation, because this, while it doesn't really apply to what we're talking about today for inclusive gatherings, it is really important for the food allergic population. And I think it is a PSA that everyone needs to know. There are no laws protecting food allergic folks when flying. The only acknowledgement of a food disability that airports and airline carriers acknowledge includes pre-boarding to wipe down your seating. And even today, that is not allowed on some airlines, and other airlines are taking that away. And all that pre-boarding is allowing is a food allergic individual to go in and wipe down all of the surfaces where they will be sitting, because you have no idea who was sitting there before and what they were eating. Airlines are not subject to regular disability law, which would include designated signage and safe spaces, ingredient labels, allowing carry-on food or beverage, or preventing dangerous allergens from being present on board. How many folks have flown and been given a package of peanuts or some other type of tree nut? Most disturbing, airlines are not required to keep epinephrine on board, nor are they required to train employees on epi usage. Airlines carry oxygen, they carry defibrillators, they carry a lot of medical devices to save folks while they're many thousand feet up in the air, but a food allergic person is not covered in any way. If they do carry epinephrine on a plane, it is always in a vial where you have to draw a specific amount depending on the person that's experiencing anaphylaxis. They do not have auto injectors. Like the picture that I have present in the slide, it is an EpiPen brand auto injector on a bed of peanuts. Food disability in schools equals the Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, and it prohibits programs and activities that receive federal financial assistance, such as public schools, from discriminating against and or excluding individuals with disabilities solely on the basis of their disability. And with schools, we see a lot more of this exclusion of the child. So food allergic kids are eligible to get a 504 plan and an individual health plan, gathered with their doctor and the school nurse. And those go over the protocols for what happens if a food allergic child ingests or come in contact with their food allergy. There's often food allergy tables in school dining halls, and this can be both good and bad. Oftentimes it's excluding the child rather than including. It also goes over their access to epinephrine and albuterol and other life-saving medications. Not all children are allowed to carry their own life-saving medications, and when you're in an event of anaphylaxis, every second counts. And there's a lot of food parties at schools, birthdays, holidays. So how can we include those kids versus excluding them? And this really touches on the key of the ever-present bullying. And I'm listing here some examples of bullying, and these are not limited to children. I am an elder millennial, so I'm in my 40s, and I've experienced all of these. They include excluding from social events, verbal threats and insults, discrediting or invalidating allergies, waving food or taunting in personal space, eye rolling, singling a person out, withholding ingredient information or medication, attacks or sabotage with known allergens. These things all exist. It's really disheartening to me to see bullying and to have experienced bullying. And I'm sharing these with you so that in the future, if you see bullying happening, that perhaps you can step in for that person with food allergies. The dangers of bullying include psychosocial tolls, isolation, mental disorders, and even death. There are multiple litigations going on in America right now, often based in high schools or colleges, where a person with an allergen has been sabotaged with it. And those go into manslaughter and murder charges. It's very serious, and yet it's still happening. This is, again, another poor slide that I don't know how to make it more accessible. So I'm just going to read what I have here. This is also from the Food Allergy Resource and Education Network. The psychosocial toll of food allergies. We always have to think about every bite, every meal, every day, and that a single mistake could lead to death. It takes a real toll on our mental abilities. Among food allergy centers that were surveyed for this infographic, more than 90% serve patients and parents who have anxiety from food allergies. Over 500 of the patients and caregivers surveyed, 2/3 report mental health concerns. Nearly 70% of patients suffer panic attacks, and more than 70% have experienced bullying. That's a lot. So we can talk about ways that we can include and advocate and bring in folks instead of excluding them, instead of bullying. These are simple best practices that anyone can do. As far as inclusion goes, you can provide allergen-free foods at events. You can ask the folks attending about their restricted eating. A little example of this that I like to bring up: for wedding invitations on your RSVP card, it'll often say, how many people are attending? Would you like the chicken dish or the vegetarian dish? How easy would it be to just include underneath that, please let us know of any allergens you may have. Labeling all ingredients, allowing alternatives to be brought in, choosing safe restaurants when you are going out with friends, answering truthfully when a food allergic person has a question about an ingredient. And inclusion can be as simple as acknowledging someone's food allergies. It's very hard to feed me, and I don't really let a lot of people try. It takes a lot of trust for me to accept someone making food for me. But in a social setting, if I'm around friends, even someone just acknowledging, we don't have any food for you here. I'm so sorry. What can we do for next time? It can be that simple for including folks with food allergies. Ways that you can advocate include educating your school or employer on their requirements by law. Again, there is no law making anyone in this Zoom produce food for the food allergic congregants. But the fact that we're all here learning about how to be inclusive and how to bring in more of your congregation is really great. You can stop and think about that. What is the size of your congregation? Now turn that 17% into your friends and family that are part of your church. Think of how many people that you could be including just by asking, what's safe for you? You can speak up for your friends with disabilities. I personally love this kind of advocation as the person who's usually on the receiving end of bullying or just not even great commentary. And when a friend steps in and speaks up for me, it's always a real heartening situation, knowing that someone else out there is also speaking up for me, and it's not just myself. Support your family in their actions and advocacy. You can step in at signs of bullying. There's also a thing called the Teal Pumpkin Project, which I always promote no matter the time of year. This is specifically a Halloween time. It means that if you put a teal pumpkin out on your porch, you're signifying to trick-or-treaters that you have non-food treats to give out. Those could be like bouncy balls, glow sticks, bead necklaces. It's really endless, the types of non-food things that you can give out for Halloween. And having been doing this for over 10 years, I can tell you children get way more excited about a bouncy ball than yet another Twix bar. And another way to advocate is just to keep learning. Come to more events just like this one. Learn what food allergies do to a person. How can we keep growing and learning and protecting each other? Some food and kitchen etiquette things that you can do in your shared meals. Simplify foods. Less is more. The less ingredients a food item has, the safer it is for more folks. And I talked earlier that over 170 foods have caused allergic reactions. So it's really hard to make sure all foods are safe for all people. But having a variety and choosing simpler ingredients will always start to include more folks than exclude. Shop the grocery store perimeters. You hear this from dietitians and nutritionists a lot, and wellness influencers if your algorithms also feed you that sort of thing like mine does. But shopping grocery store perimeters is a really great way to find inclusive food. Those are usually whole foods that haven't been processed into smaller parts. Things like fresh vegetables, fresh fruit. And in a lot of cases, they're going to be already prepared for you, chopped up and in a little container. Makes your job a lot easier. Whole meats that haven't been marinated or added with spices. There's egg and dairy on the perimeter, but that's usually where you're going to find a lot of those egg and dairy replacements as well. Currently, the world is bursting with allergen-free alternatives. I expect this to just continue because food allergies continue to rise and medical disabilities that are managed by food continue to rise. Dedicated surfaces and utensils. This is a really big one that is just so pervasive in our life. We don't think about it very often. Having a spoon just for your allergen-free food, making sure that it's not touching, let's say you have a hummus dip, and that is your allergen-free item. You don't want to use the same spoon in your dairy-filled ranch dressing as you're scooping out the hummus. So having dedicated utensils for each individual food item is going to prevent cross-contact. Now, we hear a lot about cross-contamination in our world, but rarely do we hear about cross-contact. They are two separate items. They don't mean the same thing. Cross-contamination is when you are, messing with raw chicken and then you touch raw vegetables. That's cross-contamination. Cross-contact just means that you're using the same surfaces or utensils to touch different items. I'll give you for instance, in my allergen-free bakery, we do have 2 allergens present at this moment. We have dedicated surfaces for all of that production, be it dairy or egg. And when we are working with either dairy or egg, we're using gloves. And after we touch the dairy or egg, those gloves are disposed. So we will never touch an egg or dairy item and then go touch a dairy-free item. We won't use those same tongs for touching. We won't use the same knives for cutting. Labeling all dishes, especially if they contain a top 9. So the top 9, again, is just what the FDA says are common allergens. That does not include gluten. But you can open this up to make it more safe for all of your congregants if you just write down every single ingredient you used for making, let's say, a potato salad. If you write down every single ingredient that you used and have it next to the dish, that allows the food allergic person to make that choice for themselves if they feel safe having that. Because again, it might contain something like fennel, and perhaps someone has a fennel allergy. That's certainly not a top 9 allergen, but if they see that in a potato salad list, they'll know this isn't for me. And you don't even have to ask anymore. That's all labeled right there. I'm not going to give just a little anecdote here. In 2021, after vaccines were widely available, I held a celebration for my friends. That was all holidays combined that we had missed over the past almost 2 years. And I invited everyone to bring a potluck dish, but to make sure that they would be labeled with ingredients. And if they weren't labeled, or if it contained a top 9, they would be segregated to a special table. During that celebration, I had so many non-allergic folks come up to me and say, this is the best potluck I've ever been to because I can just look and see what is in everything. And that really felt great because all I was doing was protecting myself and my food allergic friends, but everyone felt the benefit of having inclusive labeling. Along those lines, keep your packaging. If you're taking a dip out of a package and putting it into a bowl for presentation, keep that packaging so that if someone who is food allergic says, hey, what's in this dip? You can reference it and say, here you go. You can read this, and then they can make that decision for themselves. And designate a top 9 free space. If it's just one simple table, that's great. It doesn't have to be your whole party. When I have celebrations, peanuts and tree nuts are always off the table. They're not allowed into my spaces. But just having one table where folks can leave all of the vegetables, all of the meats, all of the things that don't contain one of those top 9, that creates a safe space for food allergic folks to pick out what they can have. And if you can, ask the folks you're including, what is safe for you? I get that question quite a bit when people are attempting to make meals for me, and I'm very happy to let them know, this is my brand. This is the color of the container. This is the size that it comes in. And usually in those cases, I'll say something like, you don't have to go get a whole container of dairy-free butter. I'll bring my own if you provide X, Y, or Z. So just linking the person in on the conversation can be inclusive, it can lift everyone up, and then no one is wondering, what will there be to eat when I go to this event? A common thing that I do, and again, this is me because I have many food allergies. Not all food allergic people are the same, but I will pre-eat before going to an event, especially if it is food-based. So if you want to have more inclusive meals shared with folks so they're not pre-eating or leaving early because they got hungry and they couldn't eat anything, these are just some simple food steps and kitchen etiquettes that you can start working with to include more folks into your meals. Here are a couple of resources if you'd like to learn more about the Teal Pumpkin Project, Food Allergy Research and Education Network. I get a lot of information from all of these resources. And finally, here's my email address. If you want to ask me specifically a question, it is my name, Anna, A-N-N-A, at range-free.com. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have about inclusivity, food allergies, learning more, getting directed to more resources, people to follow on the internet. I'm happy to share all of that with you. Thank you for having me here. I would love to answer any questions if folks have them. And I'll turn this back over to Wendy and Gretchen.
Thanks, Anna. We are going to have just a brief moment of music, and I invite you to think about your questions and comments, and we'll open it up to those after the music. This song is Garden Song by Peter, Paul, and Mary. The screen will show an album cover for Peter, Paul, and Mommy too, with Peter and Paul playing guitars on either side of the stage, and Mary and 3 children are in between.
By inch, row by row, I'm gonna make this garden grow. All it takes is a rake and a hoe and a piece of fertile ground. Inch by inch, row by row, someone bless these seeds I sow. Someone warn them from below till the rain come tumbling. Pulling weeds and picking stones, we are made of dreams and bones. I feel the need to grow my own, 'cause the time is close at hand. Time is close at hand. Rain for grain, sun and rain, I'll find my way in nature's chain. I tune my body and my brain to the music of the land. Someone bless these seeds I sow. Someone warn them from below till the rain comes tumbling down. So plant your roots straight and long, and temper them with a prayer and song. Mother Earth can keep you strong if you give her love and care. Now the crow watching hungrily from his perch in yon in my garden. I'm as free as that feather thief up there. Ooh, acapella now, inch by inch, row by row. I'm gonna make this garden grow. All it takes is a rake and a hoe and a piece of fertile ground. A little louder now. Inch by inch, row by row. Someone bless these seeds. Someone warm them from, someone warm them from below. Till the rain comes tumbling. Inch by inch, row by row. Someone bless these seeds. Someone warm them. Someone warm them from below. Till the rain comes tumbling.
We will now open it up to questions or comments from the guests here. Feel free if you would like to come off mute and say hi, or if you're more comfortable, put your question in the chat and it can be read aloud.
Okay, there's one that showed up in the chat, and then Michael's got hand up. The
Cool.
chat is actually from our captioner. Love this presentation, by the way. Personally, I have a daughter who has a food intolerance and POTS. So food is a huge deal with her. She is currently studying to become a dietitian and exercise science. She would love this. She has so much anxiety about food anywhere but home.
Mm.
All right. And
Thank
Michael.
you for that, Rachel. I fully understand.
Hey, Michael.
Hello, I am Michael. I am the LGBTQ Multicultural Programs Director. I am black, bald, with glasses on, a mustache, and a brown sweatshirt with jewelry. Thank you so much for that presentation. Yeah, so as an office, well, as an institution, really, we host a lot of events, and those events include registrations, and those registrations always include the questions around dietary needs.
Great.
And also we don't always get it. We get it wrong most of the time, even though we ask the questions, there is always a disconnect between what the food that shows up, the vendors that bring the food, when we submit the list to the vendors. Like, so is there a better best practice, a even best practice for how we, one, gather the information from people, and two, transfer or translate that information over to the institutions and organizations that we are working with?
Yeah, that is a really great question. And there's actually a slide that is my normal PowerPoint that I hid that really addresses the commercial aspect and food vendors. As I am a food vendor and a person who eats, imagine that. That is a real struggle. And I wish I had a better answer, but I will give you what I do in these situations. Asking the folks is fantastic, and intake is the perfect spot for that. What are your restrictions? How can we accommodate you? Verifying that with the individual is always a good next step so that they know they are heard and seen. It's the transferring to the food vendors. That is really a difficult spot, and it is a place in our society that is a awful pinch point, It needs a lot of work and it requires a lot of systemic change that a lot of food providers aren't interested in at this moment, which is devastating. I would recommend finding a new vendor. It if I have come against someone who repeatedly is not interested in allowing safe food or providing safe food, I usually end that relationship. I'll give you just a couple of anecdotes in this one. There is an event center hotel in Columbia, Missouri that does a lot of weddings and larger events. As a wedding cake maker, I have provided a lot of wedding cakes to this venue, and I've also been an attendant at weddings in this venue. And I'm always told by the venue that no outside food is allowed and no, we cannot accommodate your restrictions. So I go to weddings and I don't eat. Finding an institution that you trust is a hard process, but it will make life easier if you can find someone who is listening, who's receiving your instructions on the food restrictions, who's having an honest conversation with it about it with you. And if they recognize their own limitations, that is a really good sign. If they're saying, our kitchen just has wheat everywhere, we can't produce a gluten-free thing, that's great. They should acknowledge that and not try and accommodate to something that they cannot accommodate. Sometimes you can get references through those institutions of what other providers there might be. I personally get that question a lot, like where is safe? I get that question a lot from travelers, from my friends, just from the whole community. What is safe for you, Anna, being allergic to a lot of things? And it's not a lot. There aren't a lot of places I can go and eat, but I share with folks the places that I trust the management. So if there is a restaurant that I know they are aware, they take time to train their employees, they talk about food allergies openly and willingly, those are places that I trust. They might not have much in the way of food, but they are open to having those conversations. Right now in the news, there is a restaurant in the United Kingdom. I think it's called Bunnex. I was just reading more about it this morning. They are turning away all food allergies. They're being very upfront and exclusionary, but they're also being very honest about what their small kitchen can handle. How do we fix this? That's a huge question. How do we get buy-ins from food producers to understand how serious providing a safe food is? In this moment, all I can suggest to you is continuing to talk to other institutions and seeing if there's a safer place, a way that they can communicate better with you. But that is really upsetting when you are ordering an amount of food and you need X, Y, and Z free, and then it comes and it's either got all of those things in it or it's in a shared box. That's a really common thing. And then return that information back to the vendor. Let them know, hey, this really needed to be nut-free, but you included it in the box with the baklava. So I don't feel like I have a great answer for you, but it is a problem within the industry that needs a lot of work. And the only way the industry is going to change is if people keep saying, hey, you need to do this. Industry, you need to change. Because right now, the food allergic folks are saying that. Are we being listened to? No, they're usually say, hey, you can't eat here anyways.
A brief follow-up, and I also just want to confess, I think that there's also a lot of work to do around our internal processes when like getting it, I don't know, paying attention to what the people put in the dietary needs section. A lot of times it's like, oh shoot, right before the event, we go back and look at that blank, and then I don't know. I just want to name that, like, for myself, I guess it's just like a confession, like that slowing down and our rigid, like also spending time in spaces like this so that it's more a priority simply for people like me who are kind of basically like garbage compactors can just deal with it. Like like being more
That
conscious
was me
of
pre-diagnosis.
and also like just like identifying with people because I also don't like a lot of food. I can eat anything, but I don't like a lot of food. And I think that like thinking about that, I get really discouraged when I go to a place and there's just not stuff that I like. Not that I can't eat it, I just don't like it. And I think that also that is a way to identify with people. Thank you for this, and I look forward to using it throughout the institution and sharing it with other event coordinators so that they can be more aware.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Michael. That was really thoughtful and really well eloquated. I love the idea of like slowing down, taking time to go through those steps. As a food producer in a kitchen that sometimes is busy, like slowing down is hard, but that is the moment to catch those kinds of things. And then I had another follow up, but I'm blanking on it at the moment. But I do want to thank you for the work that you're doing and including other folks. It's really meaningful.
Yeah, a lot of what this is Gretchen again, made me think of, and I've only been learning more about food allergies in very recent years. I'm kind of like a garbage compactor myself, or maybe I will actually say, as a seeing eye dog user, a Labrador. Uh, I would like all the food, please. And for me, for the most part, it's yeah, there's a few things I don't like. Like I don't really like beets, but I can eat them. I know they're very healthy. But for me, this as a disability rights advocate, of course, this makes me think it's not the same, but it's a similar vibe to doing site visits before events, uh, to make sure that because or websites, oh my gosh, as someone who relies on web accessibility, for example, um, it's webs or applications, systems, organizations will tell you, oh yeah, our program's totally accessible. We are WCAG compliant, double A, all this stuff. It doesn't mean it is. And I know that's like incredibly frustrating, believe me, but it's along those lines. It's because people, well, I'm not going to get into corporations and money, but it's also when we decide to have an event at a convention center somewhere and find and look into accessibility and frequently need to double check because it may be a really trusted partner that we're gonna use their facilities, but it's always good to double check and make sure, are these door widths wide enough? Are these restrooms accessible? Is there braille signage? Um, Anna was speaking about weddings recently here in Columbia. The last wedding I went to was a couple years ago, and it was at a lovely old building. Um, and I could tell they had tried to retrofit accessibility in a couple of places. However, there was not a single. So, as many of you probably know, when the ADA was passed in 1990, one of the provisions is that there needs to be braille signage everywhere. That signage also includes high contrast, large print. I've written about it before in my newsletters. Anyway, this a lovely venue, which I was all dressed up for and stuff, enjoying my friend's wedding, had no braille signage anywhere, and I couldn't figure out where the bathroom was. Um, so
Things you
it
really need.
yeah, like it's our bodily functions, the need to eat, the need to use the bathroom, they go hand in hand. Um, so it's all tied together. And luckily at our congregations, this is one of those, so many congregational leaders talk to me and say, but accessibility is so expensive. And we talk about raising money and looking at our budgets and things. But this is one of those ways it does take effort. but it doesn't really cost much money at all to label your food or to put food on separate tables. Um, so yeah. Anyone else have any other questions or comments?
Can I piggyback off of that, Gretchen?
Yeah.
You're very right. Those things cost zero money, while while ingredients that are substituting something can cost quite a bit of money. Like my specific diet costs 8 times more than a traditional diet. Those things that are free, labeling, having a separate table, those are wonderful, cost effective ways to be inclusive. And I remembered my other comment after you said you don't like beets. It was based in not liking a food. Super duper valid. I follow this really lovely dietitian who says there are 3 foods that you shouldn't eat: foods you're allergic to, foods you don't like, and foods that are under seasoned. And I follow that to a T. Like, I'm allergic to over 40 foods, but I don't like mustard. I'm not going to eat it. So those are still really valid things in our eating world that everyone has to do.
All right, I'm going to jump in here. Amarin has a comment in the chat, and then Leilani has their hand up. So Amarin says, thank you so much for this presentation. I'm trying to learn more about this topic, especially after the death of Dominique Brown in 2024 from ableist and racist neglect related to a food allergy. She was told there were no allergens in the food at the influencer event and then ignored when she asked to go to the hospital. Heartbreak emoji. And then it has a link to the fortune.com article.
Yes. It's tragic how often these things happen. When you're in the food disability world, it's kind of like every month there's a new tragic death. They're always preventable. It's wild that in 2026 we're still comfortable prioritizing other people's food comfort over life. And especially in Disney, and I should have left that slide in because I go over Disney in that one. They promote themselves as being the happiest place on earth and very inclusive. And they do take a lot of steps to be food inclusive. But recently, in the past couple of years, there have been a lot of balls dropped in the Disney world. And it is turning off the food allergic folks in the community to having Disney as a safe, accessible space. And it's going to be really interesting to watch from a legal perspective what a giant like Disney is going to do for us.
Why don't, Leilani, I'd love to hear what you're thinking.
Thanks. Sorry, I have no idea. I made some updates to my Zoom based on a webinar I attended around AI and security, and now mysteriously my camera only works sometimes. I'm coming to you from Seattle, coastal Salish territories and lands of the people of the Muckleshoot and Duwamish who are still here. And I just wanted to thank you. This webinar, Anna, has been spectacular. The information, well, it was just a really well organized presentation. The slides were great, especially for people who may not understand, like how huge this is, how many people this affects. I love, as a DRE, I love that you included the experiences, the toll that children may experience from children on children, meanness and teasing around food sensitivities and intolerances and allergies. As a person with severe intolerances, I'm gonna say that I am really challenged to do some of this work that you're talking about for myself, for others, and for making events inclusive for the children at my church, for having great intakes. Every event I host, I ask about preferences, restrictions, and allergies. But for myself, I'm going to tell you, Anna, I know you, I'm just going to guess that you have this also. It is exhausting.
Oh yeah.
The personal toll, um to talk to people who are um totally unaware, defensive, dismissive, um it, and to feel that rejection, that my health and my life and my ability to fully participate are completely dismissed. I honestly, it's math. Like, I'm doing this mental and emotional math, right? And, it's less if I just eat before. It's
Mhm.
less if I just bring my own food.
Mhm.
It's less, I mean, how many people who are not doing this work of inclusion do I, because I can't even ask for what I need without it being completely exhausting.
Yeah.
And as someone with multiple marginalized identities, um as a person of color with disability, I mean, it's just, yeah, as a woman, like, it's, I guess I'm gonna just try not to cry, but I don't do this for myself a lot. I mean, I wrote up a document so that I can, like, copy and paste my own text about what I need in order to attend an event, but mostly I just do not do this. What I do is I go to an event and I make an allergen friendly meal, our dish, because I know there's always going to be a vegan there. There's always going to be somebody there who's gluten free. There's always going to, and I make something, and then I just let that person tell me how fabulous I am, and then I just meet my own needs,
Mhm.
because I don't trust anybody anymore generally about it, and I'm just too darn tired. So thank you, though.
Thank you, Leilani. I feel you. Yeah. Everything you said is spot on. We have such an immense toll, and it's so interesting how we can advocate for others but not ourselves. And I was very much that person. I want to say until probably 2018, 2019, when I was like, yeah, I have a disability. So what? Like, you are required by law to accommodate me. And it's still, I shirk from it a lot for myself, but I'm happy to go up to bat for other folks. Because we know that psychological toll and what that does every day to us. And I'm with you. I will bring one safe dish and I'll let the other folks know this is what this is. This is how it's safe. If you would like to eat it, you can eat with me. And sometimes that's the only food that I will be eating at an event. And I realized well before COVID happened that I was excluding myself from so many events, just because I didn't want to take the mental time to explain, no, I'm not going to eat your quiche. Like, I don't need to say that to folks, but I always feel very put upon when it's a food event and I'm not eating and everyone wants to know, why is this person not eating? And I have in recent years chosen the snarky way out. And at least it helps me because I am a pretty snarky person. I'm very humorous and I use humor to diffuse and to be critical in a lot of ways. And I actually had a good friend who she was vegetarian, and so she knew, like, how you feel when trying to ask for accommodations. And she sent me an AI list of responses of, like, how can I tell people that I need to be safe? And they were very snarky. And I was like, yes, I use all of those. So things like, if I'm at this is a thing that happened in October. I went to a reunion for my undergrad class, and they had because I'm from a sculpture department, we're a little out there, so we had like a clay kiln fire grill is the best way to describe it. We just had fire and then we put a bunch of grates on top, and folks were cooking like salmon and crab and all sorts of things I couldn't have on there. So I found a separate grate to keep off of that fire. And I let everyone know this is my grate. I'm using this for my food. You're welcome to have my food as well. And whenever I would get that question of why are you doing this, I'd say, well, parties are kind of not fun when the ambulance shows up and I die. I really don't want you guys to have a bad time. So reversing that onto the person and letting them know that it's partially their responsibility to keep me alive as well. I think humor works great in that way.
Well, yes, I'm so grateful for what you shared, Lilani. It's so real. And you, Anna, self-advocacy is exhausting, for whatever disability you have. Um, and that is so real and something that I actually do realize I need to get us moving towards closing here. Time blindness is my second kind of blindness. Um, so I just want to say thank you to everyone listening or watching or reading this webinar now or later, and for engaging in this work of love today and in the days to come. Thank you so much to Anna Meyer for joining us today with this great presentation. Thanks to Wendy Werrick for managing tech. Thanks to our cart captioner. Our closing song for our program will end on a slightly lighter note for some fun. It's Vegetables by the Beach Boys, and the screen will show an album cover of an orange sunset over water, and the words, "The very best of the Beach Boys, extended edition." Thanks.
I'm gonna be around my vegetables. I'm gonna chow down my vegetables. I love you most of all, my favorite vegetable. If you brought a big brown bag of them home, I'd jump up and down and hope you'd toss me a carrot. I'm gonna keep well my vegetables, cart off and sell my vegetables. I love you most of all, my favorite vegetable. Oh, veggie. I tried to kick the ball, but my tenny flew right off. I'm red as a beet, 'cause I'm so embarrassed. Oh, yeah. Jump, 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 do-do-do, pop, 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 do-do-do. I know that you feel better when you send us in your letter and tell us the name of your favorite vegetable. I know that you feel better when you send us in your letter and tell us the name of your favorite vegetable.
Our next Uplift Access resource webinar will be on Thursday, May 28th at 10 Central, 11 Eastern. Stay tuned for the topic and to find out that topic and stay up on what we're talking about. Subscribe to our newsletter. You can visit the link in the chat to subscribe. Also visit uua.org. And with any questions, comments, feedback, anything at all, you can email me at accessibility at uua.org. Thanks so much.